Hi, everyone. I was really happy to be a part of my friend Tone Vase's event, Unconfiscatable in Las Vegas. It's the first of many to come and featured a ton of great speakers. I'll be putting out extra episodes over the next few weeks featuring the people I met there. So feel free to share these episodes on your socials, follow us, leave a review on iTunes, tell a friend, and check out thetatianashow.com for more episodes. Hey there, it's time for the show, The Tatiana Show, where you make friends and talk life and crypto. A special thanks to our sponsor, MetalPay, where you can earn crypto while sending your money for free anywhere. It's like PayPal or Venmo, but without the fees. Download the app and use the code Tatiana Show and earn some rewards now. Go to metalpay.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tatiana Show. I'm here with Jimmy Song at Unconfiscatable in Las Vegas, and we're going to talk a little bit about the conference and all sorts of fun things. So thanks for joining me today, Jimmy.
Well, thanks for having me, Tatiana.
Very cool. So tell me, what do you think? I mean, this is the first Unconfiscatable. What do you think is like one of the coolest things about helping be a part of this? Because you're one of the integral members of the team. It's a pretty cool event. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I'm certainly enjoying that it's a Bitcoin-focused conference, and I think the tagline is great. It's Bitcoin, not blockchain, and of course, it's the other way around for a lot of these conferences. So I'm very excited about that. There's another one coming up in a couple weeks. There's like breaking Bitcoin, they're scaling Bitcoin. There's a lot more of these coming on, and I like the direction that this industry is going on. Today it's been great. The venue's a lot better than I thought it would be. I'm really impressed with Tone's organizational skills, and you know, I'm just the guy that just shows up with a cowboy hat. There are lots of people behind the scenes that are actually doing the grunt work, and I'm very appreciative of them.
Cool. So how did, I know that there was a big poker tournament. How did poker go yesterday? It was fun at least, right?
Yeah, it was fun. There
Pretty
were
stiff competition.
Yeah. I mean, oh my gosh, I sat down at my first table. I folded my first 10 hands. It was just so many, like they were aggressive and like playing like really hardcore. I did make 19th place, so that was kind of nice.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and I did knock out Doug Polk.
Yeah, so he's a famous poker player for people that don't know.
YouTuber, his videos are hilarious. I love his poker videos, and that's like my one indulgence on YouTube. But he's, I knocked him out. I had Ace Jack versus his Ace King, and I somehow still won. I don't really know how, but, it was fun. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm not really a poker player, but I know that a lot of the crypto community came in from the poker world. So there's probably some ringers in the audience.
I mean, there were at least 4 or 5 pros there. So that was a lot of people.
Yeah. So tell me, you were doing a workshop. What goes on in your workshops? Because I didn't pop in, but there were a lot of people there, and you're also doing a lot of this stuff around the world. So tell people a little bit about that.
Yeah. So basically what I do is, I know what it's like to be a developer trying to transition into the space, right? There's a lot of stuff that you have to learn, and it's not obvious how to get started on that, because you try to learn about what Bitcoin is. It's just too big a topic, and you can't. It's hard to know where to get started. So I designed this course a few years ago as a way to train some of my colleagues back when I was at Paxos, and since then, the materials evolved significantly. But the idea is to get people that don't know much about Bitcoin but do know about programming to the point where they can actually program stuff around Bitcoin and give them enough mental hooks to hang some of the knowledge that they're gaining and organize it in a reasonable fashion. And it's 2 days of very intense training. And a lot of my students have said that they wish it were much longer so they'd have more time to absorb it. But, unfortunately, I can't do it for that long without, like, seriously compromising some time with my family or something. So, yeah, that's the direction.
Cool. So I don't know. So I don't know very much about programming, but after those 2 days, how do they actually get involved in the community? Are they just, just start adding to, Bitcoin and go for it? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, it's like let me go change the consensus algorithm after I've taken Jimmy's class. Oh no, it's not like that. There's like anything, right? Like any job or any career, you sort of have to start at the bottom a little bit and work your way up. And in any meritocracy, as you gain reputation and things, you can climb up, and people will give you more and more opportunities. So I've had a lot of students that have gone on to, certainly a lot of different companies, but some of them are pretty popular on Medium. Some of them are doing podcasts, some of them are running boot camps, a lot of them are being like CTOs of startups and things like that. So, it really depends. And, it's really, you can go as far as you want, but it's not necessarily easy.
So do you have this course in an online version? Because maybe somebody can't meet you in your various different places where you're going. Have you thought about something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm in the middle of trying to convert my course to an online offering. Yeah, it's not so easy, though, because you have to, get the right video tools and, have the right platform. But it is in the works, and I hope to have that and have some sort of a more advanced class for in-person and have that as a requirement before you can attend the more advanced course, something like that.
Do you have any kind of certification, or have you thought about working with any kind of organization that does certification in this type of thing?
No, I don't like centralized power. So what I do is I do a PGP signed certificate, which and they're all available on my website if you know the URL, and I give that URL just to the person, and if they want to give it to an employer, here's my certificate. I took Jimmy's course, and here's Jimmy's PGP signature. This is like.
Do they get graded?
No, it's more or less pass fail. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Does anybody ever fail?
I've had people not show up on the second day, so they don't get a cert. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
So what are you excited about in 2019? What do you think is big for Bitcoin?
I think the big thing is the semi-capitulation. You want a lot of those malinvestments to go away, right? And right now there's a ton of malinvestments still. I mean, there's 10 coins still, other than Bitcoin, that have over $1 billion market cap. Some of those projects just need to capitulate first, and until that happens, I don't think we're really out of that yet. But I also think that's a very good thing, because weeding out a lot of the cruft is exactly what you need to happen in order to really be anti-fragile, and sort of shaking that out with the volatility a little bit is not a bad thing, and that's I think going to be a big story of 2019, is the continued sort of bear market, possibly turning maybe sometime in the middle, and of course getting ready for 2020, the halving. I think we're 70,000 blocks away, which is kind of crazy, but yeah, it's happening. Yeah.
So what do you think about, I was sitting at the table yesterday talking about how Bitcoin development is usually subsidized by companies, but there's, I think it's called the free rider problem. But anyway, a lot of people benefit from some of the core development, whereas other people are footing the bill. Mm-hmm. And, you think about regulation and all that stuff, and people are saying, well, you need the government to get involved. And my natural inclination is to say no. But how do you mitigate something like that? Because it doesn't end up panning out exactly the way that the libertarian dream wants it to, or maybe it just takes time to shuffle out. And of course, there's some inadvertent problems that could be caused by involving a larger authority. But do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I don't like central authorities in general, especially for a project like this, because that's exactly the way in which it could get compromised. Everyone has different motivations, and some people will work for money. And I know several companies that sponsor core developers, and the affiliation isn't even known, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. But yeah, there is the free rider problem. A lot of people benefiting from the work of those people, and them not getting the value capture of what they're necessarily providing. But in a way, if you could figure out a way to capture more of that value, there might be some profit in it for you. Most of those schemes have ended up becoming some sort of like ICO or whatever, which is not the right way. But I mean, somebody else might come up with a different model. It's really just a matter of human ingenuity and creativity, I think. But this is why there's no like steady state of innovation, right? Like, you just have to wait for more people to try stuff and see what works.
So do you think all ICOs are scams? Mm-hmm. Why do you say that? I'm curious because I think that as a funding model, it's cool. I think it's really innovative. Maybe there are some scammers involved, but I don't know if the whole entire baby needs to be thrown out with the bathwater.
Well, I mean...
You obviously do. You're like, throw that baby away.
Well, here's my thing. First, I think ICO is a completely broken incentive model, right? Because essentially what you're doing is selling seats to a restaurant before the building's been built, the menu set, or anything else. And the thing about I've been doing startup for like 22 years now. Oh God, I'm old. All right. But, I've been doing this for a very long time. And the thing about startups that almost everybody underestimates is finding a product market fit, right? Like finding out what people want. You may think but just because you know what's fun or you laugh at jokes doesn't mean that you're good at writing jokes, right? Like it's a very different sort of mental thing. And the ability to sort of innovate and change is a key weapon that you have as a startup in order to succeed. With an ICO funding model, there really isn't any impetus to change and in fact, there are all sorts of disincentives because as soon as you want to pivot, you really can't because you sold these ICO tokens on a particular premise, right? Like it's like we're gonna make alfalfa socks on the blockchain. I don't know, whatever stupid idea it is, and you can't pivot to something else that would make much more sense, And,
why not? Why can't you?
Because of the terms under which you sold the ICO, and you'd probably get sued. There's probably some sort of, and like it's also money that you got with no strings, at least most of these ICOs. They make it so that legally speaking, this is supposed to be money sort of donated to you, which is fundamentally dishonest, I think, and it's because it's not donated to you, right?
Well, those people nobody's like showing up at their house and saying, give me all your cash. I mean, they're willingly doing it. They have certain personal responsibility involved. And I
agree with that, yeah.
But then, like, also, I mean, if you're a venture capitalist, there's a problem where only the VCs and these sort of anointed investors are able to invest in a company. I mean, lots of people invest in, lots of agencies invest, right? And then they pivot and they lose money. I mean, why is that privilege only afforded to them and not to the little guy?
Yeah, and if that were the main thing, and I think what you're talking now about is more like a security token, where you get a piece of the business as part of that token. I think what I was talking more about was some sort of utility token where this token doesn't mean anything, at least according to the prospectus or whatever it is that you signed away. So those two things I think are slightly different. I'm skeptical of both, largely because it seems to me that they're trying to skirt around regulation in some way.
Isn't that a good thing? I mean, regulation is harassing everybody all the time.
Yeah, I agree, and it's funding a lot of rent-seeking bureaucrats. That said, what they're attempting to do by skirting that regulation is to not provide any value whatsoever, or provide any guarantees of anything whatsoever. So it's sort of like selling a lottery ticket without knowing any of the payoff, right? Like, and saying, well, there might not be a jackpot at all, or it's.
But don't people know that when they're buying an ICO?
Right.
I mean, so, maybe they're unsophisticated.
Yeah. So I think I'm convinced by your argument in that respect. It's people just have to get smarter, right? And say, okay, well, that was stupid. And sometimes they need to learn expensive lessons.
Right. The same thing about, not your keys, not your Bitcoins, right? That's an important, miserable lesson that a lot of people have to learn.
Absolutely. And, and a lot of people don't know personal responsibility. I certainly before I got into Bitcoin, I don't think I really understood the depths of which personal responsibility has been taken away from us. Like, just try moving your cold storage Bitcoins and you will realize, oh my God, I feel like I've never had this much responsibility for anything in my life.
It's scary.
Yeah, it really is. So doing something like that is not, and I think you might be right. There's probably a delta between, what people actually are prepared to take responsibility for and what they think they're prepared to take responsibility for, and that's probably borne out in a lot of these ICO booms and things like that. But this bear market is shaking that out too. So I think in that way it's good. Will any ICO actually produce anything? I don't know. My gut feeling is no. I tried to bet Joe Lubin on this, but he's been a weasel, and he
I saw that bet, right? He was like, make it real, make it $1 million or something ridiculous.
And he's like, no, I'm not ready to do it right now. Okay, thanks. Thanks for wasting all of our time. It's been almost a year, Tatiana. He's still avoiding me.
Time's up, Joe Lubin.
I know, right? Oh gosh, that guy. Anyway, but yeah, it's the whole thing is just to me, until there's like a proven product that has worked, I think being skeptical or
Steam it. They did an ICO and it's up there. I mean, maybe it's not a perfect platform, but I'm surprised that their token economics worked as long as they did. I was very skeptical, but it's still around.
It is still around. I think the founder is in Austin or something like that. Ned or something. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I would call it a success per se. I mean, people post on it hoping to get money that was printed by Ned. I don't know if you would call that a success. Kind of like Venezuela printing a bunch of money and giving it to the poor and saying, "See, our system works," right? Like, I'm not sure that that's necessarily quote unquote success. I mean, I guess they have a lot of content on there, and I guess someone reads it, but. I'm not. It's kind of, robbing from Peter to pay Paul, right? Like
there's a little element of that. I could see that. I think I don't know. I personally like the ICO model, but I think we have a lot of things to kind of shake out in the meantime. And I don't know. I think that there is definitely some merit in there, but then there's some risk going on. So I think with time, we're going to see a little bit more which direction that can take. So people are. I don't know. I mean, am I their babysitter? Can I tell them what they can invest in or not? I don't know, but we'll see.
I mean, generally, financial freedom, it would be great, right? Like the ability to do stuff. Thing is, like, there are a lot of scammers in the world, and they will take people's money and like glee and laugh all the way to the bank. And that kind of really sucks, right? Like to see evil people like get away with doing evil and making money off of it. So I think that's where it really kind of rankles a lot of people, and that's where like government regulation tends to come in, which I'm not a fan of.
Right.
So, I will see though. The nice thing about all this is that we'll know soon enough.
Yeah, it's a very exciting time.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something. Did you participate in the thing in the beginning of the year that Trace organized where everybody was withdrawing their money from...
Proof of keys? Or?
Yeah, proof of keys or something like that, yeah.
I mean, I didn't have any money on exchanges, so I think I was okay already.
Okay, well, so what do you have a comment on what ended up happening there?
Well, there was one exchange that sort of suspended withdrawals for that day, so that might have been in reaction to that. It's hard to say, but I mean, in general, I think you should get your money off of exchanges because not your keys, not your Bitcoin. It's a loan, not your dollars, not your if you leave your dollars at the bank, it's also a loan to the bank. So, I mean, you kind of have to think in those terms. Bitcoin's a little easier to secure than a giant pile of cash in your house, so hopefully that makes it a little bit better, but. Yeah, I mean, generally, you should hold your own private keys, though that itself is not very easy.
So I have another question for you. I know we got to get back to the conference, but when we saw each other months and months ago, you told me about intermittent fasting, and you're doing all this carnivory stuff. Are you still on it? Like, what's your advice for people that are, everybody's all fattened up from the winter? They're like, oh, I got to get rid of this gut. So what's your advice there?
Okay, well, I mean, I still am doing it. I think other than the carnivory dinner, which was a couple nights ago, I think that was the only meal in the last 4 or 5 days for me. So it's, Is
it easier to do the 4 or 5? Because I did a 7-day and I did a 5-day. And those are pretty difficult. But, you're like, it's been 4 or 5 days, no big deal. What's going on there?
Well, so your body gets used to it, right? Like as it keeps running on ketones, like the hard part of fasting is actually getting the glycogen to run out. You generally feel terrible when you're running on glycogen and you're not eating constantly. And that's your body's way of signaling you need to eat more sugar, I'm starving, blah, blah, blah. But when you're running on ketones, it's kind of like, hunger pangs come, hunger pangs go, but it's not too terrible. And it's also like a good way to tell your body you're not in charge, that sort of thing, and that's been very powerful for me because we do have a tendency to be sort of enslaved to our cravings and things like that, and just from a personal growth standpoint, being able to do things out of, I guess, my best self and not just sort of being a slave to my cravings. That's a very big thing for me. So yeah, I mean, I originally started to like get rid of jet lag. And that was mostly because I wanted to, the trick that I heard was if you fast for 24 hours before breakfast where you land and you eat breakfast, you get rid of jet lag. Doesn't matter if you're going from like India to Miami or, like Sao Paulo to Tel Aviv, whatever. You always get rid of jet lag within one day. And that's how I started, but like doing more of it and doing the longer ones, you start like sort of teaching your body to, first of all, like not bother you with hunger so much, but second, to sort of reset itself. And this is something that I've discovered about fasting. I think almost every ancient culture already knows that, but it was new to me. You reset yourself sort of physically, hormonally, right? Like a lot of people have way too much insulin in their body. When you fast, insulin sensitivity goes up and resistance goes down and things like that. You reset yourself emotionally to a large degree because your relationship with food changes because a lot of people are just kind of slaves to their appetite, and that's not a very good relationship. Just mentally, I feel a different clarity, productivity wise. I feel like I have to get more stuff done, and I'm just much more productive. I mean, sleep can be a little bit interesting. Some people sleep better, some people don't. It really depends. But overall, I think it's just generally healthy. You get rid of a lot of the crappy cells that are in your body and things like that. But it's been a fantastic thing for me. I think the 1 week fast I did, I went from like 190 to 168 or something like that, and I was able to do that while I was traveling, which, like, a lot of people are like, well, I can't take off a whole week. Well, you're still doing stuff, and you had the energy to do it. It's a matter of adjusting your mental mindset, because the big sort of aha for me was hunger is a mental thing. It's not your stomach. It's your mind, and the vast majority of the time you can tell it to go away, or just sort of be like, endure it, and it'll go away on its own.
I was going to make that the last question, but now I have a follow-up question. So I have some friends that are vegan, and they're saying that it's unethical to eat meat, and I actually agree with that. And they made a further argument that when an animal is killed, it has a lot of stress and it's really upset, and so you take on that animal's stress, which I also thought was kind of intriguing. Do you have a comment on that, or you think it's kind of just like hippie stuff?
Well, I think the argument. So I used to be a vegetarian actually for a long time. I did think about like the animal ethics issues, along with some of the health issues and things like that. Generally, cows are treated pretty well. Like chickens, on the other hand, and at least in the U.S., are treated really poorly. So I think for chickens, I think it's a no, and it aligns with like what a lot of carnivores end up doing anyway, which is they don't eat chicken because the quality of food of that chicken is pretty crappy because they treat the chickens pretty crappy, right? Like
right.
This is sort of the argument with the cortisol elevation on stressed animals or whatever. Cows, at least the grain-fed ones, the grain-finished ones, they sort of like force-feed them as much as they can so that you can get more meat out of them. I have friends that do eat only like grass-fed or pasture-fed beef for that reason, and there's an argument to be made that that's better. That said, like the entire vegetarian, vegan, fruit stuff, that stuff's more manipulated than any animal. That's the thing that a lot of people don't realize.
Right. Well, like tofu and stuff isn't necessarily good for you. It's got a lot of estrogen, and then, I see the little fake meats and stuff, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't know what's in there, but it doesn't sound like it's something that belongs to me anyway. But I do think that the case for the cosmic sadness or whatever. And also, you never really know where your meat is coming from. But if you're fasting, you can afford higher quality meats, and because you're not eating as much.
Yeah, you could go get the Australian grass-fed organic meat from Tasmania, right? Like I had some of that. That's fantastic, by the way. But yeah, I mean, like that is possible. The thing is, like vegetables, fruit, especially, they've been manipulated by farmers. They were more or less the Monsanto of their day, right? Like making things more sweeter and bigger and like not necessarily more nutritious. So if the argument is the cortisol levels on cows go up before they get slaughtered and therefore it's bad for you, what about all the pesticides? What about all the genetic sort of things that went into all of the ancestry of the foods that you're eating? You got to think about that stuff too, and a lot of those are much worse, right? Like watermelons. Oh my God, they've gotten like 100 times sweeter probably.
Why are you messing with watermelons? What do you have against them?
Well, no. You gotta understand. You look at a Renaissance painting of a watermelon inside, and it's like, you look at it today, it's green on the outside and it's like bright red in the middle, right? You look at a Renaissance painting and it's like mostly white in the middle with like little slivers of red.
Oh wow.
And the thing is, that's Renaissance, right? Like 400, 500 years ago. And the thing is, like, they manipulated it and like kept breeding it so that it became more and more red. And even in the last 20 years, right? 20 years ago when I ate a watermelon, it was like mostly seeds. What's happened? They're all seedless now, right? Like they manipulated that in 20 years. Like that's a lot of genetic manipulation. I mean, obviously the speed of genetic manipulation is like increased, but I mean, they've been doing this for like thousands of years in a sense. The original watermelon in the wild, I'm sure, was much smaller, probably a lot more bitter, and didn't provide nearly as much sugar. So, in a sense, like if that's the argument you're going to make for meat, well, then you're going to have to make the same argument for a lot of fruits and vegetables, and that's unfortunately the reality. And if that's the reality, well, you have to go with, okay, what's actually, from a nutrition standpoint, what makes more sense? Animal fat is just like magical in so many ways, and if you haven't tried it, like try having some animal fat after you've fasted, and it's like you have like superpowers or something. It's kind of weird. I'm like a productivity machine. It's kind of crazy.
Well, I think I need to do a fast after this weekend in Vegas. Man, this place is killing me, and I gotta go to Mexico next week. But If people want to catch up with you, where can they find you?
At Jimmy Song on Twitter, at Jimmy Song on Medium, programmingblockchain.com if you want to come to one of my seminars. I also have a book coming out, Programming Bitcoin, that's available on Amazon for pre-order.
Awesome. Very cool. We'll link to that in the show notes. Thanks so much for joining us today. Thank you to our sponsor, MetalPay.com. Hey there, it's time for the show, the Tatiana Show, where you make friends and talk life and crypto. We gotta think and reflect and use lots of intellect with our hearts when we work together. I know that it can be so hard out there, looking all around and saying that life ain't fair. So that is why we will fight and stay up late at night, listening to the Tatiana Show. Thank you for listening to the Tatiana Show. Please follow us on Twitter at Queen Tatiana or on Facebook and Instagram at Tatiana Moreau's Music. More episodes can be found at thetatianashow.com, and make sure you leave a review on iTunes and tell your friends. The Tatiana Show has been brought to you by CryptoMediaHub.com, a boutique marketing and PR agency for Bitcoin and